going on, my friends? It is the day before the 1st of August, and our 2019 RPG a Day challenge, and its unique take on it, or its different take on it, which is a great thing. The topic, of course, is first. And I actually made a number of videos a couple weeks ago to try to get a jump on this stuff back at the house. And then after some, let's just say some creative and not so friendly advice or commentary that kind of has put me off my my grain for a minute. Good morning, Lee. The concept of first, I thought the first game that I played, the first game that I purchased and held in my hand, the first time I played as a player, and the first time that I ran a game, and all these are firsts. The first time that I encountered the hobby and other people who really were enthusiastic about it. The first time that I walked into an actual game store and was just amazed by how much variety there was. And all these are firsts, right? The first time that I went to a game convention, everybody talked about it. I was always slow to do the new thing or the first thing. I was the last one of my friends to get a computer, for example. So the first time I went online and encountered my first massively multiplayer, it was all text-based. If I can think of the one game was called the Federation, and another game was called Gemstone, and they're still floating. Gemstone's still floating around out there, by the way. Those were all firsts for me, and each one of our firsts are unique to us, or different to us. First time that we encountered a snert or somebody who would be a troll today. First time we encountered somebody who absolutely could not grasp the concept of what roleplay means to at least us, right? To the majority, the baseline. It was a time for firsts, and yet here I am, 53, still have firsts, right? I mean, I can tell you the first time I ever drove a commercial vehicle was not that long ago. First time that I bought a house was even 7 months ago. First time for a lot of stuff. First time that I got online and I discovered that not only did YouTube have a lot of stuff, but that I could participate and put stuff out there. And my first thought was I wanted to share my hobby. I wanted to share my interest. As crudely, as poorly digitized and poorly sound-bited it was, I wanted to share, and I still want to share, because that's a first, and I'll last. I will share to the day I'm not able to do it anymore, which would be probably the day I'm going into the grave. Whether people like it or not, that's on them, not on me. The first time I participated in the RPG a Day challenge, this would be my third year. I wish I'd have known about some of this stuff sooner, and I would have been involved earlier. But circumstances in life and things get in the way sometimes. It is the way it is. Going on, Tim, and I haven't forgotten your masquerade game, your vampire game. It's just been a rough month for me. A lot of firsts too that I've been dealing with, and trying to get back on, track to some degree. Sometimes life gets in the way and you have to set your childish things aside, kind of thing, though I don't see our hobby as childish in any way. I love this thing that we do. I wish I could do more. I wish I could participate more at a more professional level, but I do what I can. The first time I hooked up to Facebook, and it was to tap into our hobby, to find other friends and associates, people who share the interests that I share, and just how important that is to be able to communicate as a community. And a lot of us have come from when you didn't have any of this social media. It was all hand and mouth. It was all meet people in back rooms at shisty looking game stores, right? In my neck of the woods, when you mention a bookstore, I'm going to a bookstore, two things come to mind for most people: an adult bookstore and a bookstore. They didn't get there was a game book store, or if you had to say comic book store, they would get it. But when I started, it wasn't comic book store, it was the game store. That's what it was. It was just wall-to-wall games and lead miniatures and war-top game, tabletop war games and tabletop role-playing games. That's what Ivor catered to, an entire store of them. And yet, 30-odd years later, the other day, I found myself cleaning an interceptor, big grease trap outside in the patio of what used to be Ivor's dungeon, which was a first for me. I never thought I'd set foot back in that building, and then to find it a wine sink was a bit of a, I don't know, another first, right? So, I like to believe that I try to contribute in a meaningful way. And sometimes I have my doubts. And sometimes other people like to throw that doubt in my face. And I don't like that either, but what can you do? It's part of life. It's part of those trolls who like to get off on mimicking or mocking or making fun of other people's contributions, which I don't like to do. I think it's a good thing to contribute, to encourage everybody who participates, no matter how primitive it might seem, because it may be their first at attempting to reach out to the bigger community, and we should never step on that. We wouldn't do that at a gaming table. We shouldn't do that in social media either. We're better people than that. My opinion, of course. Then there's, trying to script things. I started out in my early days, my first game I ran, I heavily scripted. I tried to create everything that I wanted my players to see, do, and experience. And it became the concept of railroading long before I understood what it meant. Another video channel that I participate in, though it's been a little slow the last month, talks about techniques and how to improve some very sophisticated mindsets behind what we do and clarify things. We play because that's what we do. We want to play. We want to be entertained. We want to entertain each other. But do we always understand the subtle reasons behind why we do that? There's too many to express. You know what I'm saying? You betcha, Tim. That's a big part of what our job is, to support everybody else and to be encouraging, especially to the new people. But we never know who's new. We may not know the name that pops on, but I take a very dim view when I see other people lambasting or poo-pooing somebody's efforts. It's a difference to have a constructive dialogue or constructive disagreement and discussion as to why I think something should be something, or I should think something should be played some way, or I don't like that set of rules. I really don't like the absolute. If it's not an absolute, if it's a discussion, if we're having, a point and counterpoint to it. I don't like this because, and we explain why. It's from our personal experience that we're sharing with these other people, with everybody else, our first and their first. Because every time you meet somebody new, it's a first time, correct? I mean, in my opinion, right? So that's just my thought. Like I said, GM Bloodsworth, his YouTube channel is Unscripted and Unchained, and I'd recommend looking at his stuff. He's got some good stuff there. I kind of wish I had the unscripted part as part of my my moniker or my title name or whatever, because I don't script a lot of anything anymore. There's no time for it. I don't have the luxury to sit around in a mini studio with a lot of free time or a lot of time I can borrow from other sources to make the perfect product to put out there on YouTube. I mean, recently I hit 100 subscribers, which was, wow, 100 subscribers? And yet it's relative, because it's not about how many people, it's about that I'm having discourse and I'm showing my passion and I'm explaining things to maybe first-time people. There's a fellow that I've been having a lot of conversations through my YouTube channel on Star Trek, the role-playing game, and Star Trek in general. And it shows a lot of interest that we share. And that was a first for me anyway. Then unscripted, right? Having a script means it's no longer first. An unscripted approach is first. We're doing it from the heart, from the thought, from the mind, perfect or imperfect. That is the flavor, the base, the honesty in this hobby that we all love and share. Anyway, it's a beautiful morning here in Iowa. Humidity is very low. It's almost chilly for the coming up on the 1st of August. The Iowa State Fair starts in 10 days, and God willing, the weather will stay nice through the first weekend because last year it was nasty. So, y'all have a good day.